Oh, well, you're ready, I'm sorry.
Alderman Lazara.
Here.
I guess
Alderman
that's
Jacob.
Here.
Alderman Winger. Alderman Catalano.
Here.
Alderman Sismarski.
Here.
Alderman Roy Wesley.
Here,
Alderman Woods.
Here.
Alderman Eugene Wesley.
I make a motion to approve the minutes August 14, 2014.
Move.
All in favor?
Aye. How about a second?
I made the motion.
You made the motion. It was Roy and Eugene second.
Got it. Said I need a motion. Oh, I thought I said- Okay. Turn it over to the chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight, coming to, the first item is looking to replace a 2005 Ford Taurus with a 2015 Ford Taurus. This is part of the Suburban Purchasing Cooperative, which is a competitively bid process. This is a budgeted item that we included up to $24,000 in the budget. We're not going to need all that money, and actually, through the end of the year, they're offering a 3,000. Okay,
Excuse me,
yes, sir.
you like to make a motion?
I make a motion.
You made the motion.
Second.
Not to exceed $18,511.
Okay, roll call. Oh, questions? You got any questions? Okay, roll call.
Wait, she's typing up the motion.
Too fast.
Alderman Lazara.
Yes.
Alderman Jacob.
Yes.
Alderman Winger.
Yes.
Alderman Catalano.
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski.
Yes.
Alderman Roy Wesley.
Yes.
Alderman Woods.
Yes.
Alderman
Yes.
Eugene Wesley.
Okay, chief. You're learning to talk like an attorney, though.
The, practice. The next item, coming to you with an issue we're having with parking over on Potter Street. It's the area between Central and Pine Avenue. There are a couple businesses that are of particular concern, but the whole area on the north side of the street is industrial, on the south side of the street is residential. And the particular problem we're having right now is with a business that has, to their own credit, has been very successful. So they get a lot of traffic that's bringing in a lot of trucks full of product. Problem it's creating is there's no parking restrictions in the area to restrict parking to one side of the street. And so we're having cars and delivery trucks that are parking on both sides of the street. And when a car tries to pass down there between people getting out of their vehicles and cars trying to pass, it really is too narrow of a street to have parking on both sides of the street. So what we're going to be looking to do is amend the parking ordinance, and this would be a no stopping, standing, or parking between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. in this area. And it would allow parking on the commercial side, and it would restrict parking on the residential side. But really, you have the main focus where you do have cars that are parking is for the businesses that are on the north side, because most of the residences all face the north and south streets. So I know this has been a issue that's kind of increased over the summer, and I know some of the aldermen have started receiving complaints over there too. The police department has received some complaints, and we've observed the issues over there. We did deliver a letter to the business owners too, to let them know of the possible restrictions that were going to be coming. And they, the one that we're particularly having some issues with, he was supportive of doing this.
I make the motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? No question? Great.
Chief, do we know what business hours this particular business has?
He's supposed to be starting no earlier than 7 o'clock a.m. We've actually had some inquiries recently about some cars lining up before 7 o'clock and him accepting deliveries before 7 o'clock. This past weekend, we were kind of checking that out, and cars start to line up about a half hour before that, and we did have an issue with him start to accept some deliveries a little before 7. We spoke with him, and hopefully that'll be the end of that happening. Otherwise, he could face further sanctions. But he's allowed to be open at 7, and the latest he could accept deliveries is 10 at night. But in reality, it's not extending late into the evening. The morning is the biggest problem we're having, so.
Paul?
So, well, I guess what I'm asking is the 6 AM to 6 PM long enough? Should we go 5 AM to 10 PM?
We really haven't experienced cars parking there before 6 AM. So I think 6 AM would, because he's not even allowed to start accepting deliveries until 7 AM. So I think 6 AM would probably be sufficient. And then the majority of the deliveries are happening early in the day after the product is being picked up overnight, and then near the end of the day too. So I think for right now, the 6 AM would be fine. You could be safe by going till 5 AM. It wouldn't hurt anything, but I think the 6 should be good with the UDO, the zoning ordinance that doesn't allow him to open till 7.
PM, 6 PM, I think, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alderman Jacobs.
I had asked about this, were we originally gonna do Monday through Saturday, or were we doing 7 days a week?
I think it's safer just to go 7 days a week, and that way we're not concerned with any issues.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, keep going.
Right. Last thing I have is, there was I know a brief discussion last week on a restaurant that wants to add a A-R liquor license over in the Georgetown Shopping Center. So I won't delay it, but you guys know the issues that are out there. They want to add a AR liquor license, and looking for direction whether you guys want us to draft an ordinance to that effect.
Did anyone look at the contract for Georgetown in their contract about video gambling?
No.
Okay. Alderman Woods.
I'll make a motion to approve raising the AR licenses from 2 to 3, I believe that's.
I would
Second.
second that.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Opposed?
One opposed? Okay. One opposed? Anything else? License plate reader info. Need a motion for adjournment?
So move.
Do I get, I'll second.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I'd like to call the Public Works Committee to order. Roll taker note that the same people are here. Make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting August 28, 2014. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Report and recommendation, drainage swale along the rear yards of South Cedar and Iroquois. I'm going to turn this over to Matt. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to turn this microphone on. Turn this over to City Attorney Pat Bond.
Thank you. There was an issue raised with respect to the possible easements in favor of the city on property along in the Christina Woodlands, Linwood Terrace subdivisions. One of the property owners had indicated that there was an easement in favor of the city, which would allow the city to come in and do work on that on those properties along there to eliminate or alleviate certain flooding concerns. So what we did in connection with that, and we've done this in the past, a number of years ago, this issue was raised, is we checked the public records of the DuPage County Recorder's Office, as well as the tax records from the Treasurer's Office and the County Clerk's Office, to see whether or not there was any basis to the claim that there were easements specifically in favor of the city of Wooddale in either of those two subdivisions. What the plats revealed was a 10-foot wide easement parallel to the back of the lot line. These were specifically designated as utility easements, and the utility easement has on it a specific notation in the Christina Woods plat that the easement is reserved and granted, I'll quote it, reserved and granted to the Illinois Bell Telephone Company, Commonwealth Edison Company, and Northern Illinois Gas Company, and their successors or assigns. with respect to the Linwood Terrace plat, there's a specific reservation of those easements for the use of the public utilities, including Illinois Bell Company and Commonwealth Edison, and it goes on to say that there are no other grants of easement. So that being the case, the question is whether or not the city has the authority or the right to go onto those private properties and make any, do any work or perform any work or any alteration. And the law is very clear. The Hendrickson Hunderresser, Hundrieser versus Perry for their note taker. The Second District Appellate Court, which is where Wooddale is located in the Second District, said that the use of an easement for a limited purpose stated, and easements that are to be strictly construed so as to afford the owner of the underlying property interest in the maximum use and enjoyment of his or her property. In other words, what that says is when you have an easement is an encumbrance of the property. And so when you are going to encumber private property, you should do it as minimally as possible because there's things you can't do on an easement. For example, you can't put a shed on an easement. You can't put certain other fences and so forth in order to protect that easement in the event that a utility would need to go on the property and do it. The notations specifically in this instance, the notations on those plats specifically restricts those easements. And it restricts it to those particular utility companies. And a general utility easement does not give a municipality, such as the city of Wooddale, the unfettered right or authorization to go on the property. In fact, to the contrary, easements are to be construed in favor of the party to whom the document created it, and the easement fails. The law says if it fails to specify any other person that has an easement in its favor, that there is no right of any other entity or company to have any rights to that property. So absent any easement on of record on the private property, and we've not seen anything. I specifically asked the homeowner if they had any, and I've not received any documents which may not have been recorded perhaps, but of the public record, there is absolutely no easement. The city records show that there's no easement in favor of the city, and absent any easement of record or presented, the city does, on private property that grants the city the authorization to go on that property. The city lacks, under the Illinois Municipal Code, the city lacks the authority to go on that property and to perform any work on that property. So they're simply lacking any authority to do so. There have been times when the city has gone on private property. If the city was performing some work and there was a main break or some other reason and the city caused that, the city has the right then to go on that property. They still need the private property owner's permission, and if we've done that, we've done it with a temporary easement or in some instances a permanent easement. But the representation that was made before the council is not supported by the public record, and there is no easement. And as I've opined to you on numerous occasions, if there is not an easement that gives the city the legal right to go on the property, the city has, under the law, city has no ability to go on that property, no right to go on that property, and would be considered a trespasser just like anyone else who accesses that property.
Pat, if a resident is infringing on that swale, who is responsible to have them clean that up or move it?
Well, if another property owner believes that their property is being impacted as a result of something their neighbor did, they can attempt to compel the property owner that's infringing upon that through a private cause of action. The statute specifically provides for a private cause of action for a party whose private property is impacted in some way, shape, or form by their neighbor. So if there's a belief, and frankly, I don't know that that's supported by, we had a large rain recently, and I don't know that there is actually a collection of water or any flooding back there, but to the extent there is, that private property owner would have the ability to initiate an action against their neighbor and would have to prove that their neighbor altered the swale or altered the topography in such a way as to cause that flooding or buildup on their property.
So it sounds like it's pretty much neighbor against neighbor in that case.
Exactly.
And if someone has a shed on that, is it the responsibility of the, let's say, the electric company to make sure they remove that if they see it?
Yeah, to the extent, and that happens frequently, a lot of times people will put a shed knowingly or unknowingly on a property, and the utility company wouldn't know about it until they're coming in to do work on that particular area. But the utility company has a right to that, because that right is granted specifically under these two subdivision. The grant was specifically empowering the utility company. So if there is a shed or a fence or something on that utility easement that interferes with the utility easement, ComEd, Northern Illinois Gas, and the telephone company, now the successor to Illinois Bell, would have a right to demand that that be removed, and that they have an independent right that they can pursue in court if the property owner refuses to remove that.
So as a resident, and I see my neighbor has infringed on the swale, can I call the utility companies and notify them of that?
You can, the utility companies will make a determination if that infringement is impacting the reason for that utility, and if it does, they'll take action. If they make a determination that that infringement does not impact the reason they have that easement in the first place, they may not take any action. But they should be, that would be the entity, the proper party to contact, yes.
Okay, thank you. Christine?
Thank you. In the third paragraph of the legal opinion, it makes reference to the placement of water and sewer lines as one purpose that would be allowed. And, or that's the way I'm reading it, correct me if I'm wrong. And then also, so my question is, if the city wanted to try and provide relief to the neighbors, could we be the lead agency to put in drain piping and then special service the cost back to the residents of that community that would benefit?
Go ahead.
They could not. You could establish a, special service area. What that is, that paragraph is in a larger context if there's not limiting language on it. Sometimes you have an easement that specifically just says it's a utility easement, and there has been interpretations that extends to, other utilities such as water and sewer lines. In these instances, the documents are very specific that they're, they have restrictions on them, and the restrictions are in favor and say that those easements are specifically limited to those particular utilities. So it's not a general or broad utility easement. It is a very specific easement in favor of those entities that I referenced before.
Go ahead, Peter.
If the city believes that there is an issue at certain properties, could we get permission from the utilities company to do work, or no?
Go ahead.
Well, you would need permission. First of all, you'd have to determine whether it's a city issue and not a purely private issue, because the city doesn't have the right to expend public funds on a purely private purpose. So if somebody's got a low area in their yard and they just want it taken care of, the city doesn't have the legal authority to spend public funds on that purely private purpose, that it doesn't advance any broader protection. So you would need not only the permission from the utility companies, so the ComEd, Niagas, and the telephone company, you would also need the permission of that property owner as well, because that property owner has overall rights to their property. The utilities have additional rights to that particular, where the easement is located, for purposes of their utility. So you would need both, but that would be predicated on whether or not there's a public purpose or public benefit resulting from that, and not just for a limited individual or individuals.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Pat, for your report.
You're welcome.
We have a report and a recommendation on Potter Street Pond. Matt, I'm going to turn that over to you, please.
All right, thank you, Mr. Alderman. Our last committee meeting, we brought to you a proposal from Baxter and Woodman to design the Potter Street Pond into a dry basin pond without under drains. At that time, there was discussion about bringing forth a rain garden into that Potter Street Pond. So we went back to Baxter and Woodman, asked them to redo their proposal, and today is either to go with the dry bottom pond, which was discussed previously and back in October, or if we would like to move forward with the rain garden philosophy and enter into agreement to work on, to design that project.
What does the engineering firm, what is their opinion, which would be the best of the options?
Go ahead.
I don't believe that they gave us a favorable opinion on either one. I didn't ask them to tell us whether or not which one was better than the other. I asked them to provide us with a proposal to design it into a rain garden. They were willing to take on that project, to design it into being a rain garden. So at this time, I don't think there's a preference from Baxter and Woodman's side of it on which one would be better. They're different. Obviously, there's 4 proposals out there, whether we do a wet bottom, a dry bottom with under drains, without under drains, or the rain garden scenario. So there's 4 different actions out there.
Matt, do you know what we have there now?
Technically, it's supposed to be a dry bottom pond, but it's
Is that dry bottom without?
without under drains.
Without
yes.
under drain. So that obviously isn't working for us. I
The
mean,
current
condition of
the
that.
current condition of the pond needs to be redone. To do it without under drains can still be manageable. It just has to be reconfigured in order to make it work properly.
Is there a difference as far as life expectancy, so to speak, on
So you're
the
talking
difference
about-
between the wet bottom and the dry bottom?
You're talking less.
Matt?
Am I reading?
Well, it all depends on upkeep and maintenance. I mean, none of these ponds are just gonna be, we're not gonna just drop them from the sky and not be able to sit and not maintain them. So, a wet bottom pond, if it holds water all the time, that has its own set of scenarios, whether it becomes aquatic applications for mosquitoes and those kinds of things. So upkeep needs to be done there. Dry bottom pond without the under drains turns into something like we have now. We have to do maintenance upkeep. With the under drains, we have a pump station now that we have to maintain on a regular basis. The rain gardens, to do the upkeep of the rain gardens, we're not exactly sure how that's gonna all pan out because we've never dove into that realm yet. So all of them are gonna have upkeep issues, just like anything else. They're all gonna last about the same amount of time. It's just about how much money we're gonna put into it on a regular basis to keep it up going.
Jeff?
Just one other consideration, staff has got a lot of grant applications in the hopper right now. We have the Elizabeth Drive ponds, retention ponds that we're talking about doing rain gardens. We will be applying for a grant for the rain garden there, and we can also apply for a grant if we did a rain garden at this location too. So, and that's a 25% cost savings. If we did the rain garden, it wouldn't be applicable towards.
So the rain garden is the only of the 4 that is
Applicable for a
eligible
grant.
for a grant.
Correct.
Okay. Pete?
Matt, based on the conditions of that pond, I brought this up a year ago due to the fact that it always looks bad, mosquitoes, it looks like a mud pond over there. I mean, without talking to the engineers, I mean, what do you think would be the best thing to go with here? I mean, just,
Well,
Matt, go ahead.
I guess it's, if we continue the dry bottom without the under drains like it currently is, obviously we need to upgrade our preventative maintenance over there and our yearly maintenance program, and put in things like dredging and things like that to get the silt and stuff out of there. I mean, if we want to go with a rain garden, we go with a rain garden. I'm not a rain garden expert. I don't know exactly what it's gonna take to keep the maintenance and upkeep of that, but, we'd be more willing to give that one a shot over there and see if we can, help the community out and beautify it a little bit. But, I mean, whatever we do over there, kind of with other things that we've found within the Public Works Department, we just need to stay up on it and keep the maintenance on it to make it work.
does the rain garden, does that have drains, under drains, or no? I'm not sure how rain gardens work at all, so.
No, the rain gardens would not have under drain, so it'd be without under drain, so there wouldn't be a pump station, which is why it costs so much difference between the dry bottom without and with under drains, so.
Eugene?
I have a couple of questions here, if you don't mind. The wet bottom, if I ain't mistaken, it comes in, and that was the first proposal. Am I correct on the dais a couple of weeks ago? Was that the first one?
Matt, do you know?
No, the wet bottom one was not discussed 2 weeks ago at a committee. That was discussed back in October.
Okay, so
The
unless.
one that we
there's-
discussed the other night was the dry bottom without under drains, the $64,000 improvement.
Okay, so the problem I see with rain garden is with all those sump pump ejectors or sump pump pipes coming into there, and the other business that's got their connect their rain gutter in there that's going there. If I ain't mistaken, rain garden, I'm not an expert and don't think I am in planting or anything else, but a rain garden, I would assume that there will be flowers in there and all that, that's going to look nice in that area. My concern with going with a rain garden over there is I'm concerned about all that sump pump stuff pumping in from those townhouses that are,
Eugene, I think, didn't we ask the residents, or are we telling the residents that they can't do that any longer? Matt?
No, the one on the east, on the west side of the property, that property owner has said that he would take care of that side. The west side properties will be still discharging, and if we need a better explanation, Attorney Bond can explain that. But in talking to Baxter and Woodman regarding this and regarding that situation over there, there are ways to, throughout the design process, to engineer it, to put the proper materials in those locations. So whether there's some pump discharges coming in there or not, or it's just heavy rainfalls coming in, it's not going to destroy the plant species that are in there. There's different ways to do it. And it may be just the way that we plant things along that wall. There's enough buffer, we put diffusers in, whatever. There's design elements that we can utilize that will make the garden still a rain garden.
may I finish my follow-up?
Go ahead.
So, obviously, the letter that we received, that I asked that question about that, the letter we received from the building department is that was approved by our engineer company to allow those townhouses to pump that water in there. So that ain't going to change.
No, yeah, it can change. Pat, can I get an opinion on that, please?
Sure. Well, actually,
No, well, I don't want you laughing, but
yeah.
here's your answer.
Okay.
Yeah, and we looked into that and looked at some of the facts and circumstances. This was the design did not have it discharged in the fashion it is. The approval from the city engineer signed off on this some 5 years ago. And based upon that sign off, the property owner relied on that city engineer giving their authorization and permission. So for the city to go back at this juncture and alter that can be done, it has to be done on the city's dime as opposed to on that of the property owner, the developer. Had there been a shorter duration, or had this resulted in it wasn't functioning or in a life safety issue, my answer would be different. But the facts that surround this particular situation don't implicate any of that. So it unfortunately, the city, because of the sign off by a city engineer who's no longer here, it really restricts our rights, given the fact that the property owner relied upon that approval in moving forward.
Well, if we do get that changed, and I know it would be on our dime, where would they discharge their water?
The discharge would either be in either one of two locations. It would either go to the south and then go into the ditch line, which would then in turn go into the pond, or it may be discharged directly out to the north into the metro ditch line where the pond discharges into.
So that possibly could create a whole different kind of problem for us? We don't know,
I don't
obviously.
believe that there would be a different type of problem.
Okay. Eugene, go ahead.
So then with the conversations going on that you feel that maybe we could change it on our dime, then I'm going to make a motion till we discuss that options that you bring up now to table this back to committee again for another month.
Go ahead, Roy.
Pat, do we have the right to go onto these properties and do a yearly inspection on on their sump pumps on how they're connected. Because if we're gonna do a rain garden here, who knows when they're gonna change their sump pump and stuff getting pumped into that rain garden and destroying the plants and everything.
Anyone have an answer to that?
Yeah, I mean, that's
Nope,
gonna.
that was- Wait a minute.
Mine was a motion to table back to committee after discussion.
Do we- that was a motion?
For a second, yeah.
Okay, do we have a second on it?
I
A
guess
second?
Gotta do roll call.
Okay, we need a roll call.
Can't get my question answered. No, you can't. Robert's rules table.
Alderman Lazara.
No.
Alderman Jacob.
No.
Alderman Winger.
No.
Alderman Catalano.
Yes.
Alderman Sizmarsky.
Yes.
Alderman Roy Wesley.
Yes.
Alderman Woods.
Yes.
Alderman Eugene Wesley.
Yes.
Thanks for the answer, Pat.
Okay, that's tabled. Okay, we're gonna move on. Report and recommendation, Robinson Sidewalk Engineering Plan. Who wants to take that, Matt?
I'll start. And
Why don't we get this map at the meeting?
It's in there.
It's in the packet. This
the
is just a
map
little bit
is
more
in the-
legible. It's the same map. It's a little bigger for everyone to see.
All right,
It's bigger and in color.
go ahead, Matt.
Yes, thank you. This project was brought forward during the CIP project, or process last year to install a sidewalk along Hemlock Avenue between Stoneham and Elmhurst. At this time, Robinson Engineering is here to discuss two different plans. There was one option that was presented to staff early on, and the city staff decided to take it back to Robinson, and they came up with a second option as well. So there's two options: one that will minimize disturbances of existing trees and infrastructures, and one that is more of a traditional sidewalk alignment. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Aaron with Robinson Engineering to explain the two different options.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can I ask one question before?
What was that?
Can I ask one question before we get started?
Thank you.
Because everyone's still getting their maps out, so.
All right, I'll give you one question.
All right, my question, did we get a confirmed letter the Park District is not taking part in this at all?
Go ahead,
That's all I
Matt.
want to know.
We have not, we have received information that the Park District, I believe, Mr. Eiler, is on board for $10,000, a not to exceed amount of $10,000.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, I just,
thank you.
Okay, we're good, Matt.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as Matt had indicated, we had met with staff a couple of weeks ago to go over a preliminary alignment for this sidewalk. And quite honestly, one would think a sidewalk is a relatively simple project, and it certainly is in a new subdivision or in a wide open patch of land. But there are numerous issues that came up, and we wanted to make sure that before we proceeded any further, we had city council input and potentially input from the very residents that will be along this sidewalk before we decided on one final alignment or another. And what I'll do real quickly, you've got a couple maps in front of you. They were probably pretty small on the information that were in the packet, so we made them a little bigger for you. There's two main options here, and just so everyone understands, typically in a residential subdivision, when a sidewalk is constructed within the public right-of-way, they're typically located about 1 foot inside the right-of-way. They're typically 5 feet wide. And what that does is it allows a straight passageway for pedestrians, but it also allows plenty of space in the parkway, whether that be for trees or other utilities such as water and sewer, ComEd, et cetera. In this particular case, what we're going to be doing is retrofitting this sidewalk into an existing subdivision, and numerous challenges have been identified that would have impacts on the residents. This first option, which we show, and you can see that sidewalk is curving in and out quite a bit within the right-of-way. Mostly to avoid certain things that are already out there, like large mature trees is a primary concern. There's several bushes, there are drainage utility structures, catch basins and things like that that are in these parkways. And I've got a few photos here as we go through this, but the main, the main issue is this, the sidewalk itself. You know, we are concerned even about the aesthetics of this sidewalk if we were to go with an option that avoids most of the obstacles that are there today. It'll be less traditional in terms of a winding sidewalk. While it will minimize the number of trees that are removed and other conflicts, and it's got the potential to minimize driveway, that's another completely separate issue is the driveway issue. I'm going to come back to that one at the end. It does have some advantages that way. Either alignment would require the Park District easement on their property, but in numerous locations, we would have to bend the sidewalk all the way against the curb, essentially making it a carriage walk. And I know that Public Works had, I think rightfully so, expressed some concerns with that alignment, curving in and out, especially if there were young children on bicycles or something, and pushing that all the way along to the, so near to the curbs. So we were definitely concerned about that as well. Obviously, there'd be less impact on the actual private property outside of the right-of-way in this case, and it's a little bit less expensive cost. But to give the committee an idea of what we're talking about here, this is one location you can see on the west side of Hemlock where there's a hydrant, there are trees, and that the right-of-way line and approximately where that sidewalk would go, it would probably straddle right between that hydrant and that tree. So it's just one instance. There may be residents that would love to have their trees come down. I don't know that that happens too often. Some of them would like to come down if they don't have to pay for it. But this is another area where we thought that maybe getting resident input might be prudent in this regard, as well as council input. Here's another location a little bit further to the south. You can see the large weeping willow tree. There are some nicely manicured hedges right along the driveway there. The sidewalk would need to go right through those. If you see just to the right of the sign, there's a drainage structure there that we'd want to avoid as well. So there's numerous conflicts here. And this is another aspect. There's only a couple driveways that this is the case. You can see that's a relatively new concrete driveway. I would think probably just 2 or 3 years old perhaps. But you can also see that the slope of that driveway from the parkway down to the curb is fairly steep. There's two driveways right next to each other, and they're in that 6 to 8% driveway slope range, which isn't a problem for a driveway. However, in constructing a sidewalk, there are ADA requirements for what the cross slope of the sidewalk, the maximum cross slope for the sidewalk is about 2%. So when we would meet up with a driveway like this, we would have ADA issues that would require us, if the sidewalk were to go through there, to reconstruct that driveway to a different slope, probably having to go onto the private property in order to have the average slope come down to an acceptable slope for ADA. On the other side of the street, you can see this is on the east side where the red circle is. There's a little bit of a shadow in the photo, but there's a retaining wall there that's been made, looks like through modular brick. Where the sidewalk would go, we would definitely have to impact this retaining wall. You can see there's a bit of a slope there too. And a little bit further to the north, you can see there's a heavy dose of mature trees and bushes, and even I think a little bit further there's a fence that we'll show on the other option that's a little more visible. So these are some of the challenges that we have out there. None of them, they can be overcome, but we felt before we would go any further with these options, we'd get input from the city to see which one of these is maybe preferred at the council level, and then be able to take things to the residents. I'll walk through option 2 real quick as well. You can see that for the most part, this is a much more traditional alignment. It is mostly straight sidewalks. You can see on the west side, we would be bending around the parking area for the park. That's going to be true in either option. It's pretty much unavoidable. But on the east side, you'll see there's a few bends still because of the obstacles, but there's less than you saw in option 1. And again, it's more traditional, but in this particular case, where option 1, we feel we'd be able to avoid actual tree removals and get away with just trimming. In this particular option, which again brings maybe a little bit more of the safety options more favorable than the first alignment, there would definitely be tree removals under this one. Storm drainage inlet modifications would need to be done. The driveway modifications are the same in both cases. The easement's the same. This would not have a carriage walk against the curb, but it would increase, we believe, the needed coordination with residents along there. And the construction cost of this option would be about 15% higher as well. A few of the details here, a couple of these photos are the same because the conflicts are the same. I'll maybe try and focus on here on the willow tree. There's even a chance that the root structure in this option of that willow tree would be such that it might need to come down. If we had to put that up, the sidewalk, again, that 1 foot against the right-of-way line. That's the same driveway issue you saw before and the same retaining wall. Here, it's a more extensive area of trees that would be impacted if we hugged the property line in this case. So we wanted to bring these issues to the council. I think this last slide, basically, it shows both options, albeit in smaller detail, but a summary of those options. Option 1, we feel would be built, on the order of about $79,000. Option number 2, about $93,000. And there are these issues, and I think the one area that I wanted to come back to, and this is again an aesthetic concern. Normally, when you, in a subdivision that has sidewalks constructed as part of its original construction, you would normally see a continuous concrete walk from one end of the block to the next through driveways. Driveways are typically constructed, with an apron that goes between sidewalk and curb, and then on the other side of the sidewalk up to the house. We talked about this with staff. I mean, certainly we would save money if all we did was connect the sidewalk in between the driveways. But you have some driveways that are asphalt, some that are concrete. I think one was even stone. So that's another discussion point of, would we prefer to see a continuous sidewalk? That's more disruption for the residents in order to build those sidewalks through the driveways. My gut is that the finished product might look nicer with that continuous walk. That's about an $8,000 difference in either option, and that's actually included within those numbers. So if we didn't go through the drives, option 1 would be closer to 71, and option 2 would be closer to 85. But we felt that, again, we should get city council input before we proceeded in earnest with either final design.
Thank you. Looking at this, do we really need sidewalks on both sides of the street? I think maybe I'm wrong, but I think our goal was to make the park accessible through sidewalks.
Okay.
Eugene, is because I know this is something that, is in your ward, and you brought this up.
Well, I think the option was, since the other one goes, the other side's got 2 sidewalks too. So one side on Hemlock, that's why we choose to do both sides. But I wanted to do both sides because it goes on a circle regardless on both sides, because there's one down Elmhurst and then there's one that goes around the block. With that being said, my question to you, I did go out there and measure today. I took the sidewalk from the park district that he put in the sidewalk on help me out here, Elmhurst there. They have a sidewalk there. I took that, I measured a square foot of a sidewalk. Then I took the ruler out to that location. I went from the curb, from the city curb, and measured whatever that sidewalk width was. Looking at it, to my opinion, and I'm not the engineer and don't think I do, I don't think we have to do that much of this moving around. You're going to be off the curb. Granted, you ain't going to give them a big, wide front yard. I mean, granted, but to my measurements, if that's how we measure the sidewalks, and I don't know, I just took on my time to do that. I don't think this design is set the way I think it should be done, but I'm not the engineer. So I would like to look at a different option here and look at my option and see if that would even work.
Are you suggesting you maybe move the sidewalk closer to the curb?
No, I measured from the curb, I took that sidewalk, the width of the sidewalk. Okay, I measured from the curb to the width of that sidewalk. And it's still going to be off the curb, but not as much, but it's still going to be away from the curb.
I think the key is where the right-of-way line is, to make sure that we'll be able to keep the sidewalk within the right-of-way.
What is our right of way in the front?
Well, it's shown in that dark black line on the print. And that's where, again, in option 2, we've tried to, for as much as we could, keep that sidewalk 1 foot within that property, within that right-of-way. And it's not to say that a sidewalk couldn't be built outside of the right-of-way. It would require easements, though, similar to the last issue that came up, the Attorney Bond was explaining. You would need easements to do that work on private property. Now, if the question is move the sidewalk closer to the curb, we do believe there are numerous conflicts, no matter which swath, which area you would put that walk. If you walk the entire length, between the fire hydrants, or, some trees might be 10 feet off the curb, some might be 6 feet off the curb, some might be 12. There's not a real clear corridor without making some of these bends that we show. At least as we've looked at it.
Matt, have we petitioned the residents in that area about the sidewalks? Go ahead.
No, there has been no communication between the residents and Public Works staff regarding these sidewalks.
I really would like to see that done if we can. Go ahead, Pete.
This is a question either for the city manager, for one of the aldermen in Ward 4. With these, we have had this done in your ward before where we put in sidewalks. Did we not have the same problem? It's always been, this area's been there forever. They had trees there too. What did they do in the others where they did put in sidewalks? What's that?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Took trees out? And that is an option, there's no doubt about it.
Jeff, go ahead. I'm going to let you.
Sorry, I had to step out for a minute, but going back to the original comment with the public input, in other larger scale projects, in recent times, we have been in the preliminary engineering phase of projects, going out, having some community meetings with the residents that this may impact. So certainly something we can do and get some input from them. They're obviously the ones that have the project in their front yards or backyards or whatever. So we have been doing that in recent times, so.
Yeah, I just was asking if we did this, so seeing that we didn't, I would like to see that done. Go ahead, Christine.
Thank you. It certainly looks like option number 1 is a much more green approach. We're gonna save the existing trees that we can. I have seen on Addison Road when they put in the bike path and they meandered through the larger trees, and I believe it looks nice. So I am not opposed to option number 1. So I am in favor of option number 1. And secondly, question on the driveways and taking the sidewalk through the driveways. So the $8,000 difference, so it's $8,000, and we can have all that done where the driveways would get, do I understand that correct?
Yes.
Where and replaced and look appropriate?
Well, to have the sidewalk go through the driveways,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, it's about $8,000 for all the driveways that would be affected.
Oh, that's great, okay, thank you.
Tony?
Yeah, thanks. I like option number 2. I'd rather go with safety than, you're gonna have pedestrians, you're gonna have kids riding a bike going to the park, and, looking at that sidewalk going too close to the street, and also those bushes, some of those bushes have to be removed, especially when you have kids riding their bikes down there, and you have to worry about people pulling out with their cars. So I will go with option number 2.
Art?
I'm also for option number 2. One, the safety issue, but 2, to, in part, claim the city property. Typically what happens in communities when you go to retrofit, you move that sidewalk to the street, and then you reduce and, in most cases, completely eliminate the ability to come back and plant trees later. Because now when you're planting the trees, the perception is that you're planting it on the property owner's property, even though that is our parkway. So that becomes an issue. Everybody up here knows that I'm not in favor of whacking down trees, but we could also add a few dollars to plant some trees when we're done here and really take a serious look at some of the older ones and maybe go around them. A curvy linear sidewalk in today's market is more desirable as a community, a better aesthetic, streetscape-wise, and I think should be the preferred choice of the city, all things considered. Some of the issues we're dealing with is precisely because nobody took that approach to protect the parkway and just went, well, let's just put it anywhere, nobody cares, we'll never put a sidewalk. Well, now we're putting a sidewalk, you know, and now people are walking on the sidewalks because the community's changing and there is more people, there's more activity. Look how many people are out there walking with their young kids, the bikes, the strollers. So from an aesthetic standpoint and from a safety standpoint, I think option number 2 is the preferred. And whatever tree we took down, I would like to add planting at least a similar amount of trees back.
And Mike?
Yeah, I agree with Alderman Woods, and I'm also gonna stand on the fact that when we started putting sidewalks in this community, this was basically a non-sidewalk area. It was more swales. Nobody was walking the streets, kids were playing in the streets, and ever since we started putting all the sidewalks in, I've noticed more people walking their dogs on the sidewalk. You know, you gotta clean it up, or they're supposed to. There are more people out riding their bikes, walking around, and when typically, I think it was a Matt, when we do put sidewalks in, any trees that we do take down, we usually put back ornamental trees. We ask the resident if they would like a certain tree or something in their yard that we have taken down.
So Mike, what option do you?
2.
like? Option 2. Go ahead, Ray.
The temporary easement, is there a fee for that? Or is that in with the price there?
The cost of obtaining the temporary easement?
Uh-huh. You know what I mean
It's
by
not
that?
in there. That's a construction cost only.
Okay.
I don't know that the value for a temporary easement would be tremendously high. You'd hope that a resident would be happy they're getting the sidewalk and they may just.
All right. I don't know if it's in that with that price or not.
No,
because
but
I've seen
it's
them
not.
both
It's just a
options.
construction cost.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Um,
Pete. Oh, I'm sorry, do you have follow-through?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'd like to see a motion on the table, but I'd like to see one of the aldermen from Ward 4 make that motion for what option they want to go with.
Yeah, I think we'll do it after Pete's question. I'll take a show of hands. Pete, go ahead.
I would agree with option 2 for safety reasons, and like Alderman Woods said, to take back what was city property and have it all nice over there. I guess I was just wanting to ask the 2 aldermen in the ward if they've talked to some of the homeowners over there, or are they aware some of this is gonna be happening, or are they not aware?
Mike or Eugene? Eugene?
I will tell you that I did speak to a couple residents over there, and that's the reason why I brought this to the table, is because the kids are walking in the middle of the street. And that's why I brought this to the table. But I told them it ain't only my decision up here as Alderman. It's gotta be, the whole council's gotta agree. But I did tell them that's why this went to the forefront, is because of safety of that. Because that is the -- 1 busiest park in Wooddale Park District. It's the most popular park.
Right, you know, and I agree with having to have sidewalks. I like option 2 also. But I sure would feel better about the fact that, you know, we at least reach out to the residents and just get a feeling as to what they would do. So I'd like to see a show of hands. Option 1? Oh, we need a motion for this? Okay.
I'll make a motion, oh, go ahead.
I'll make the motion for option 2 to be installed.
Okay, second?
Second.
Just on the question.
One more question. Go ahead, Kirsten.
So, we're voting on this, but then if we're gonna ask the residents what they want, should we ask first then, and then make a determination? I believe that some people are not gonna wanna lose their trees, or maybe half the, street doesn't want the sidewalk, or, I mean, if we're gonna ask what they want, should we do that first, or, what were we looking to get out of the question to them?
Well, I would just feel better that the residents know that this is happening. Eugene?
But I will tell you, in the past here, whenever we do reconstruction of the street, we automatically put sidewalks in, and we don't give the residents a choice. Okay, so we did it on Stolen, that we just.
Yeah, you did it on Iroquois also.
Right, so we don't even give, so even if we down the line, when that street gets reconstruction, sidewalks are going in. We have passed that on this council when a street goes in, it automatically goes in, and maybe we'll work with the residents of only putting them on one side. But it's always been a policy of this council, whenever a new street went in, sidewalks went in. But we gave the all option if they want to go on one side or both sides. But
Okay, any more, Mayor?
The reason we're putting these in is strictly because of the kids and safety. So I don't know why we keep talking about
Can we do a roll call, please?
Alderman Lazara.
Yes?
Alderman Jacob.
Yes.
Alderman Winger.
Yes.
Alderman Catalano.
This is for option 2, right? Yes.
Alderman Sizmarsky.
Yes.
Alderman Roy Wesley.
Yes.
Alderman Woods.
Yes.
Alderman Eugene.
And that passes.
Thank you.
We have a report and recommendation finding the survey for temporary speed bump installation on Edgewood Avenue and Dunley Street. Go ahead, Matt.
Yes, thank you, Alderman. There was a request made through the police department to Public Works back in July about putting temporary speed bumps along Edgewood. I believe it's the 100 block of Edgewood and the 300 block of Dunley, to help reduce in speeding in that area. We did a survey in July. The survey results were, our surveys were sent to 32 people. We got 17 respondents, 9 yeses and 8 nos. So at this time, I would like to ask for direction from the committee on whether or not temporary speed bumps should be installed due to the timing. We originally were going to try to get them in this fall, but we'd like to get them out before we plow snow, just in case nobody wants them. So we would like to do it in April, use April, May, and June as a test pattern, resurvey, and the end of June, 1st of July, to bring forth the results to council so we can get them installed in next construction season. So at this time, I would ask for a recommendation on whether or not we need to move forward with temporary speed bumps in this area.
I would like to hear what the police department thinks, what Greg thinks about speed bumps there.
Thank you. Actually, a little point of clarification. This came through a resident, through one of the elected officials to look into it in that area. As far as speeding data or citation data, we really haven't had a lot of citations written down there. We've done some special watches in the area to see if there's any issues. We are currently purchasing a new traffic radar system that'll allow for some monitoring of the traffic speeds, to get a better picture of what it is. The current system we have that you have to attach to the ground is not effective anymore, so we are in the process of ordering that. But it did come through a resident, and I believe a couple residents through one of the elected officials, and that's where this kind of came up as a topic.
Do you have a recommendation on this, Chief?
I guess following the protocol of the past, we haven't seen a huge speeding problem over there, and at the same time, there doesn't seem to be an overwhelming desire by the residents to have something like that put in there, so.
Okay, thank you. Peter?
17.
I had actually talked to a few residents over there. One of the main concerns with one of the residents was a safety issue. And I believe there's been a few accidents where the car almost went into the house. It knocked their brick, they had like a brick structure it knocked down. One time a car smashed into their bushes, and I have had several people complain that people speed down more on Edgewood than on Dunley. And I did bring this up to the chief last year, just to see, maybe if we could talk at committee, see what we want to do about it.
Eugene?
First of all, right now, if this is coming to us to approve to get in, I'm not in favor of this at all right now. If you want to revisit this come spring, come spring, well, what are we gonna do? It's already September. time we get the stuff, do we even have these in-house to install? And then the other thing is, come September, what are we gonna do? Do a test for 3 months? I mean, it's not worth it right now.
Like was stated, we were planning on putting these in the springtime and not now. But since we have the information, since the survey data was in, we brought it forth to committee at this time. If we delay until April to put them in, we delay until April to put them in, but at this time, we'd like to have direction since it's the current information we have.
Well, I think based on the survey and based on the recommendation by the chief, I would say no. Do we need a show of hands, or Tony, you have a question?
Yeah, I think we should leave it up to the residents to vote on it. So put them in, and if they want them, then we can go back and survey them and see if they want them. I mean, it's up to the residents.
Okay, Mayor?
All right, we already did the survey. It's 9 yes, 8 no's. Yes wins. It goes in for a year. We used to do temporary 2 or 3 years. It used to be old policy. Now we just basically put them in once. I guarantee you, after you put them in next year, out of the 17 that responded, the other 15 residents will respond to the petition, and then you'll have your answer. But in the past, 9 beat 8, so it went in. That's basically what happened, so.
Okay, so can I get a,
It didn't happen like that in Potter Street.
all right, anyone want to make the motion? Matt, you got something? 1 second.
Well, I guess another issue with this, and it wasn't denoted in the, but we do have it broken down by Edgewood versus Dunlay. The results on the 2 streets are totally different, so I don't know if the board, committee would like that. I mean, it was sent out as an Edgewood-Dunlay survey, but since the issue was brought up that on Edgewood turning on to Dunlay was the issue, we do have the data that is broken down by street, so I don't know if the committee would like that information or not.
Yes.
Go ahead, Art.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely want the information. So we're talking about putting these on 2 different streets, and these votes are coming from 2 different streets.
Yes, yeah, it's
And-
Edgewood and
Is
Dunlay.
the vote, a winning vote on each street,
Ed-
or it's not? You got the numbers in front of you. Let's
Yes,
not waste time.
I do have the numbers. Edgewood was was 9 return surveys, 6 yeses and 3 nays. And on Dunlay was 8 return surveys, 3 yeses and 5 nays. So the nays had it on Dunlay and the yays had it on Edgewood.
So why are we even talking about this stuff?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Do we have a motion on this at all?
Not yet.
No.
Okay.
Here, I mean,
Go ahead, Pete.
I have one more question for the chief. I had asked you, if possible, to do kind of like a diagonal.
what?
Put it on a diagonal where the 2 streets meet. Is that possible? You had said you didn't think that was possible to do that.
Go ahead.
No, we did talk about that, and to put it in the middle of an intersection, it doesn't follow the traffic control guidelines. And just another reason that this is being brought forward is kind of, the established policy of if a resident brings forward this desire to have speed bumps, we survey them, and, regardless if 100% we feel one way or another, we've kind of typically followed the direction of residents. I know the last time it was overwhelming. This time it's more split down the middle, but that's why it's being brought to you at this time.
Go ahead, Pete.
With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the temporary speed bumps and put them in next year.
Do I have a second?
If you give me a street,
The motion fails.
It was
are you doing 1 or 2 streets?
for Edgewood, on Edgewood.
Only.
But isn't this
Only,
both? Aren't we asking, this is to ask for both, isn't it? Matt?
Well, the request originally was for both, but if committee would like to make a change to the recommendation, I mean, that was my report and recommendation. You guys can vote on whatever
Okay,
you would
Eugene,
like
go.
for.
I'm going to make a motion. You didn't get the second. I'm going to make a motion.
Yes, you did.
You did get a second?
No. We did not get a
Since you
second.
didn't get a second, I make a motion to deny this right now until we get the right numbers and what street we're going to. So that is my motion, to deny it at this time.
You got the right
Right,
number.
but we don't know-
Yeah, wait, a
I
minute.
would
Hold on,
say
guys,
deny.
hold on.
I would say deny.
Okay, what we can do is we can make a motion, just Edgewood for speed bumps.
Right.
And then deny, or make a motion for Dunley.
Correct, and that was my motion, was to do
Second.
that.
For Edgewood.
Well, go ahead, say your motion again, please, Pete.
The motion is to put the speed bumps on Edgewood.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? That, okay, one opposed, that passes.
Wait, no, there's more opposed, roll
You better do
call.
a roll call.
Thought I heard two. Go ahead,
No.
roll call.
Alderman Lazara.
Yes.
Alderman Jacob.
Yes.
Alderman Winger. Yes. Alderman Catalano.
Yes.
Alderman Sizmarsky.
No.
Alderman Roy Wesley.
Yes.
Alderman Woods.
Yes.
Alderman Eugene Wesley.
That passes. Now, do I have a motion for speed bumps on Dunley? Go ahead, Art.
They didn't get the requisite number of yeses, and for the mayor, the noes won.
Right. That's easy enough.
Nays had it.
Right? If that's the rule, that's the rule,
That's,
right?
that's what we've always done in the past.
What do we got?
I concur.
How many noes do we have?
But the attorney's saying you need a motion, even though the residents voted no.
You've got two action items. You should have a motion to approve speed bumps on Edgewood,
Right, which we did.
On Dunley.
On Edgewood.
on Edgewood.
Right.
You did the motion on?
We
What's
did,
the other street?
right, we just approved that.
No, what's the other?
And then we're asking about Dunley.
Dunley. So you should have a separate motion, and if it's the intention of the council to vote it down, you vote you vote no on that. But at least you've addressed both of those streets. That gives staff clear direction that Dunley's not sitting there in limbo.
Okay, Art?
Yeah, I'm okay with the vote but for future, if the surveys come back and nobody wants them, does it have to come back to the council all the time so that we go through this?
Go ahead, Mayor.
Wasn't it always that if it was a yes or a positive votes when it came back?
Right, if it's a no, no use coming to the committee, just
I'll vote on it.
informational only. The residents said no, the majority said no, it's done.
Okay. Go ahead.
And the only reason you're voting on it is because it's before you now. So, I mean, the policy is that, you didn't, but you've got that, has been part of the discussion, so you needed to address that particular street and speed humps. That's why you're taking action now.
All right, I'll make a motion not to put speed bumps
Should
on
be in the
Dunley. Do I have a
positive. Should be
second?
in the positive.
Second.
Hold it.
In the positive?
Yeah, just make a motion to approve, and
And
then
then
it gets
vote
voted
no.
down.
Vote no.
Vote no on that motion.
Go ahead, Tom.
Was that the one that they voted no on? it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So motion to approve is what your motion is.
Motion to approve speed bumps on Dunley.
Who
Do I have a
was the- Who was
second?
the second? Did we get a second? We didn't get a,
Give me a second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Alderman Lazara.
No.
Alderman Jacob.
No.
Alderman Winger.
No.
Alderman Catalano.
No.
Alderman Sizmarsky. Alderman Roy Wesley.
No.
Alderman Woods.
No.
Alderman Eugene Wesley.
No. I have a question.
Go ahead.
My question here, I don't know why we had to make two motions, because on the agenda tonight, in the memo, it says install curbs and speed bumps within the area of survey was sent to residents of Edgewood and Dunley. That should have been one motion, because it is not broke down on the agenda to break those motions apart. So is that a new thing we're doing?
Pat?
Could we do that?
You can do it, and the reason is you've got a temporary speed bump installation on Edgewood and Dunley. So you've got two streets specifically referenced, and
Okay.
they're separately referenced on the agenda. So that's why I said, I understood what the vote was going to be, but just to address that on a procedural basis so that the Dunley Street is off the table now, you had to take action to dispose of it. Otherwise, you took action on Edgewood, but the Dunley Street was still in limbo and had no direction to staff. So you had to dispose of it, and that was the proper way to do it procedurally.
Okay, thank you, Pat. I'd like to move on. Report and recommendation, partial payment number 9 to Williams Brother Construction, Inc. for the NWWTP Upgrade Phase 1B project in the not-to-exceed amount of $1,866,806.68. That is my motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Lazara.
Yes?
Alderman Jacob.
Yes.
Alderman Winger.
Yes.
Alderman Catalano.
Yes.
Alderman Sizmarsky. Alderman Roy Wesley.
Yes.
Alderman Woods.
Yes.
Alderman Eugene Wesley.
And that passes. Report and recommendation, partial number 1 to Swallow Construction for the Ward 2 Phase 1 and fracture project in the not-to-exceed amount of $553,193.55. That is my motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Lazara.
Yes?
Alderman Jacob.
Yes.
Alderman Winger.
Yes.
Alderman Catalano.
Yes.
Alderman Sizmarsky.
Yes.
Alderman Roy Wesley.
Yes.
Alderman Woods.
Yes.
Alderman Eugene Wesley.
That passes. Art, do you have a question?
Yeah, quick question for Matt, maybe that, what is it, Forest View, where they directionally bored under the creek to get the water line through, and that is kind of all torn up and piles of stone and stuff. The work is really done over there. Is there any way we can get that road fixed up? Because there's some issues with the kids and the buses and the bikes and the,
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, that part of the project, the roadway is supposed to be done with the rest of the roadway, but I will work with Swallow to see if they can at least do some cleanup over there and mat it down a little bit, and then when Orange Crush comes in to do the asphalt, that they address that section first.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Just for some information, the trees have started coming down on Elizabeth, and I've noticed that the tree stumps have not been totally, they've been stumped, but not totally. I'm seeing the same thing that what happened in Carroll Stream, so. I just-
Matt,
so
can you
so
address
your So your information on that, there's, probably took down 7 trees and 2 of them had stumps
Still
still
have
above the
stumps.
ground.
Matt?
Yeah, I will address that with the contractor on tomorrow morning. Actually, there's 14 trees that were removed today. So we are well away into our ash tree removal project.
Okay, thank you. Pat, I do have a question. I want to say something that doesn't have anything to do with Public Works. Can I address this?
Does it have to do something on one of the other committee agendas?
No, it's not on any agenda.
Is it an information only?
It's, yeah, I would say it's information.
And you could make that report or comment.
Okay, well, basically, the comment that I have is the literature that is being sent around in the election between Christine Winger and Judy Burke.
Yeah,
Well, that's why I asked the information.
That particular topic, it would not be something you could discuss.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
I didn't know the time.
Items to be considered at future meetings. The PRV purchase September 25th and generated purchase September 25th. The wall change order treatment plant September 25th. Elizabeth Pond RFP September 25th. 2015 sidewalk and street engineering RPF award in the fall. Street sweeping program in the fall. And any other questions? Anything? Go ahead, Art.
Yeah, Matt, the wall change order for the treatment plant, that's to continue that partition wall or whatever we want to call it, ornamental
Yes,
wall.
that's the, all the stuff that we
Complete
didn't want to
both
talk
ends.
about last time.
Okay,
So,
thank
yeah.
you, that's it.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
The Finance and Administration Committee, we called to order. The roll taker take what? Adhere to all the persons that are still here. Art's leaving. We'll wait till Art comes back, but need an approval of minutes for meeting August 28th, 2014.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Report and recommendation to amendment 2.106, participation in IMRF of Chapter 2, Article X of the City Code.
Second.
There's my motion.
I have a question. You guys are changing one word on it, right?
No, actually, there is, the second sentence will be changed to remove the probationary period, and then the third sentence is changing one word, yes.
That's what I was referring to, is the elected officials. The word is, what's the word, which?
It went from, it'll go from shall to may, so it's permissible.
So give me the definition on that, Mr. Attorney. It's saying that we have to?
No, you may, if you had that as a benefit, you can, you're not compelled to, however.
Okay. I'm just, when you change one word legally, it means something else, so I just want to make sure that I understand it correctly.
We don't need to vote on that, do we? You want a motion in a second?
Not yet.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can.
the motion is second. Let's take a roll call.
Okay, Alderman Lazara,
Yes.
Alderman Jacob,
Yes.
Alderman Winger,
Abstain.
Alderman Catalano,
Yes.
Alderman Sizmarsky,
Yes.
Alderman Roy Wesley,
Yes.
Alderman Woods.
No, he's not here.
I was going to say Alderman Eugene Wesley.
Yes.
Carry voted. Number 5, a report and recommendation for amendment 14.402, certain animals restricted. Chapter 14, Article 5, 4 of the city code.
Is it a motion?
Is it a form of motion?
Second.
Questions?
Yeah.
Christine?
Is there an existing problem with pigeons in Wooddale, or?
Go ahead.
Roosters?
Thank you. No, I wouldn't say there's an existing problem. It's more of the fact that pigeons aren't addressed anywhere in the problem, and we do know that there are people that do harbor pigeons and keep pigeons in the city. And I've done a lot of research into this, and there's a lot of horror stories out of a lot of cities. I'm sure there are some very, good pigeon harborers out there. But what happens in most cities I've read about is that they let the pigeons out once a day to kind of fly around and get some exercise. And in doing that, they end up on a lot of the neighbors' roofs and driveways and yards, and they end up kind of dive bombing in a, So anyway, it ends up being troublesome to the neighbors when someone has a big coop of pigeons. So we're basically just trying to make sure that the city has an option to enforce if they do run across that problem, being proactive, should that problem present itself in the future. So.
Okay, thank you.
Motion is second. We vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Report recommendation for hardship program. Motion.
Yeah, there was a request to look into offering a hardship program for those who have come on hard times, whether it's on a temporary basis or a more long-term basis. There's experienced economic difficulty, unemployment, or whatever. And unfortunately, as well-intentioned as that may be, the municipal code provides that if you're operating a water system, you're considered a business. The common law says if you're doing that, you have to do it without reasonable discrimination in rates. So what that prevents you from doing is discriminating in those rates unless there's a reason for the rate differential. Like you've got a resident versus non-resident, that's been acceptable. Or if you've got some extenuating circumstances where the cost of extending those services to that particular group of people is necessary. But simply on a basis of economic hardship, the law is very clear that would be considered an unreasonable discrimination against that particular, against the other individuals. And what that does is opens the city up to exposure from someone who doesn't have an economic hardship, and saying, well, wait a minute, I'm paying the less or more for my services, we're getting the same services, that is considered a discrimination of rates between residents, and that has been deemed to be an unreasonable discrimination and is in violation of the common law. So rate reduction based on hardship could subject the city to liability for somebody bringing an equal protection claim. So we have indicated previously that it's not allowed for in law, and it would be our recommendation, a strong urging that the council, again, as well-intentioned as it is, does not go down that road, because it certainly would open you up to potential liability from the other residents who don't suffer from that hardship. And the hardship is another thing, could be temporary in nature, so you'd have to continually, one, qualify the individuals to determine whether or not they have a hardship. You'd have to continually qualify them to determine that that hardship continues. So if they were unemployed, are they still unemployed? Did they get another job, and were they able to make up the difference? So it's a very slippery slope, and again, one in which the law simply doesn't recognize as giving the city the authority to do. You're a creature of statute. You have only those authorities that are conferred upon you as a city by the state legislature, and this is not one of those the rights or one of the authority that you have.
Okay.
So what do we got to do?
What we do with this?
Let it go.
Make a motion to deny?
Yeah, it's just information purposes, so it just was not going, so staff knows not to bring that back up again on that basis, if that's the consensus.
Hey, can I ask, I know it ain't on the agenda, but let's go under finance on, recently we had a fire in our ward, and in the past we have, obviously they're gonna be out of their house for a while, or apartment building or whatever, apartment building, 3 flat went off. Isn't there, what didn't we do in the past that we disconnected, we didn't charge them for garbage because they haven't been at the property? Didn't we have that at one time in the program? Could we do that, or could we not do it? Because they won't be in there for a long time.
Yeah, the city did pass a caveat to the garbage bill. There were certain qualifications that had to be met, and the property owner had to apply for that reduction. So either they can apply, or afterwards, if you want to give me information, we can look through the caveat or the address, and we can look into that. Yeah.
And just briefly, the difference in that is that you're not providing services,
Right.
as opposed to water where you're providing services, but they've got a hardship. So that's the distinction between the
So we could
previous
do
item.
that if they.
You could, again, you're not providing them services, so they would not need to pay for those in that instance.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Dick. All right.
Question on the same subject. Would there be a time frame that would kick this in?
Yeah, there would be. Once the services are restored, they have to pay for those like anyone else who's receiving those services.
No, but I mean, for different reasons that you would stop the payment or discontinue the payment, is it something that would last a duration of 30 days, 60, 90, a year? If I'm working on my house and move out into an apartment, I'm gonna be gone for a month, do I get to not pay?
No.
Are there any other criteria?
Yeah, no, I mean, I defer to Mr. Wilson, but the only way you could legally do it is if no services are being provided, and it was something of, like a fire or flood or something that's not of the property owners doing it. Certainly something, as soon as those services are being restored, then the charge has to also be restored. So otherwise, you're providing a benefit to someone without having them pay for that benefit. And with the example with, being out temporarily, somebody goes on vacation for the winter or whatever, that doesn't qualify. It has to be a catastrophic event, I believe, and it's dealt with on a case-by-case basis.
But are those things spelled out?
Yeah, I can pull up the specific caveat. We've only used it once before,
and it was one of the homes that was on the FEMA buyout program. So there's some pretty, very rigid and restricted
Okay.
qualifiers for that.
Thank
So
you.
it's not, you know, the snowbirds or something like that stuff.
Items to be considered for further meetings, TIF in the fall, water rates in the fall, tenant owner water billing in the fall, staffing study briefing in the fall, and city code updates is ongoing. Anything else?
When are we talking in the fall for the study? I mean, give me a date.
Mr. Murmas?
By the time of the next committee meeting, these items that say fall, will have some dates assigned. It's just,
21st.
with the meeting cancellation with IML and all this stuff kind of coming together now, we haven't formulated exact dates, but we'll have those by the time of the next meeting. But I would assume that staffing study would be in October.
Yeah, till September 21st. You make a motion for adjournment?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You opposed?